This is going to be an introduction to the second project for Mat 225. This is going to be your first WordPress site, at least for this class, and it's going to be using other people's themes and plugins. This is not something that you're going to be developing from scratch, at least not the theme anyway. The content you will be developing from scratch. This is going to be, at the time of this video, it is 20% of your grade. If that for some reason changes, make sure that you just check the website. So I'm going to scroll over this, and of course you can always get this from courses on my website and go to courses and then Mat 225 and then choose the second assignment, or second project. So an overview is that we're going to make a completely responsive WordPress website that features a minimum of 6 places of interest in the greater San Diego area. And that can include anything. That's a huge range of an area. So that can be all the way up to, you know, past Oceanside, and it can be all the way out to the Salton Sea as far as I'm concerned, and down to the Mexican border. So that really gives you an awful lot of opportunity to explore and go places and take photographs and write content. And it also gives you an opportunity to go do something a little bit fun, so that you can get your content. So anyway, some of the objectives specifically of this assignment are to explore using different themes before deciding on a final choice, so that you can see how different themes maybe deliver the content differently. Another is to explore a variety of plugins and how they work, and basically to see what a plugin is and how they extend the functionality of the basic WordPress installation. And then to get a basic understanding of WordPress's major components, that would be posts, pages, widgets, plugins, and so forth. We'll go over that more later. Learn how to modify, style some simple styling anyway, sections of WordPress websites. And I'll talk about the sort of acceptable ways to do it, the best practices of the ways to do it, and some ways that you should probably avoid doing it. And also we'll learn how different themes will affect content delivery as well. It's not just something, the theme isn't just something that's going to make it pretty, it also actually affects the way that the functionality of the website behaves. So there's going to be some requirements. One of the things you need to do is you need to make me an administrative backend user, and I want you to call it Lee, and you're going to check Blackboard. I'm going to send out an announcement and tell you what the password is going to be, so I'm not going to publish that here in this video or on my website, but anyway, just go to Blackboard and check it out. I do need this. It is something that's important because I will not be able to give you a grade without this. I need to be able to see what you've done in the back end. Okay, in terms of the themes requirements, so after you get up and running with some basic testing data, you need to explore how different themes will work with your content and choose one to use. Do not pay for a theme to complete this assignment. If you choose to do that, that's all you're doing. But you are absolutely not required to pay for a theme. A lot of themes are going to a lot of good reputable themes, I should say, are going to give you sort of like a free version that you can test out, and then to get some advanced functionality you might have to pay for the theme. Some of them will be subscription based and some of them will just be a one-time fee. So we'll talk about that more whenever we get into the demonstrations. Okay, so as far as plugins go, plugins are things that are going to extend the functionality of your WordPress theme. Some themes have a lot of really cool plugin type things already built into it or into them. And then there's some really basic themes that, you know, maybe you really like the theme, but you just need to be able to do something else that is not an option in the actual theme. And so you can go and find plugins that will do stuff. And these are ones that I want you to experiment with. You don't necessarily have to use every single one of them, but I want to see that you installed them and that you experimented with them. Okay, and we'll go over more of these in the demonstrations. Some optional plugins. One is going to be for disabling comments. If you're going to create a website that doesn't encourage or allow comments, then you should definitely disable the comments with a plugin. It's a really simple one. There's some other things like Google Map plugins and accessibility plugins and so forth. Okay, some layout components that I'm going to require are going to be a header, navigation, content area, and footer. If you don't want a sidebar, you do not have to have a sidebar. If you want one, then definitely choose something that has a sidebar. Okay, and every one of these components should be content substantial in some way. I want to reiterate that because I don't want you to just have a footer with nothing in it. You know, I want it to be something where you've really thought about the styling and you've really thought about where the content's going to go and what makes sense. And I don't want the footer to just be some afterthought. I do want you to consider using a footer. I do want you to use a footer, and I want you to consider important things that would go inside of it, and we'll talk some more about that too. All right, styling, you have to do a responsive theme. Fortunately, most themes nowadays are responsive by default, unless you choose a really old theme. And I want you to use some CSS3 styling to enhance the site without having to create text and drop shadow images. Now, I don't have a lot of styling requirements here because a lot of the themes that you're going to choose are going to look pretty nice right out of the box. But you are also encouraged, not required, but you're encouraged to try to figure out how to do additional styling. Like if you want to change the color of your text from the basic theme, then we're going to kind of go over some of that. Some themes will actually give you a special editor that kind of protects some of the styling information, and we'll talk about how WordPress deals with style sheets and how you can deal with editors and the danger of losing those styles when you go to update your theme and so forth, but we'll deal with that later. And design, I want you to use original imagery unless it's from copyright free or free to use sources. Google fonts are required. All right. This is going to be a little bit tricky, this whole Google font thing. This isn't like a regular website. You actually have to either do something that's called on-queuing scripts, or you're going to have to use plugins. I would suggest that you try the plugins. It's going to be a lot easier, and at least for this assignment. And then I want you to stick to a succinct color palette. I don't want you to go all over the place with your color. And then in terms of the content requirements, what you need to do is you need to figure out, first of all, what's going to be interesting to you. All right. But they have to be places of some sort. And I don't care what you choose to do, but you need to kind of choose a basic theme of your topical theme. So it could be, like I said before, anywhere in North County to the Mexican border, all the way out to the Salton Sea if you want, right? Or it could just be places in your neighborhood. They could be places of absolute importance, like natural importance, like, the state parks, Salton Sea, and so forth. Or they could be like hidden gems, like restaurants, hiking trails, things like that. But, don't do restaurants and hiking trails, and like do things that are going to be somewhat related. Tourist attractions, for instance, things like at Balboa Park, Hotel Del, whatever. And then maybe you could also think about doing unexpected places, like if you wanted to do little weird hidden things that that nobody really thinks about. Or if you want to go visit farmers markets or something all over the county, that's another option. Anyway, but the overarching theme is going to be sort of one of the following. You either need to pick kind of like unremarkable or forgettable places, and this could be like, maybe a critique of things that don't hold the interest that they're purported to have. This is probably not something most people are going to choose to do, but if you kind of have that sort of skeptical cynicism and that's what you want to focus on, knock yourself out. Also, you could look at doing like awesome or sort of inspiring places. These could be like well-known things or things that you found on your own. They could also be just absolutely awful places if you want to sort of cover the things that you should never go do, right? Whatever. Anyway, it's intended to have a focus on sort of one of the following, either good, sort of really bad, or sort of uninspiringly blah. If you get to a thing where you want to do like reviews, though, for instance, of restaurants, then you can kind of mix it up. If it's specifically a review of that you're kind of doing reviews of something in particular, like maybe beer gardens or you want to go to hiking trails or whatever, and you want to rate them, you can kind of rate them based on your experience. Okay, so that's your second project. Some examples would be like this is a student work where um, he's got some different things that, and well, in his case, he actually did a really nice job, and he ended up choosing to do sort of a blog style, not really a regular website, but it was, you know, something that was sort of very much a blog style that was really just about the things that were inspirational to him. And so, for instance, you know, he's got all of these different things on this page. These are his different places and things of interest. So his mini home studio is one of them. So if we were to go and look at that page, you see that he wrote an entire article about his mini home studio, and he's got a little gallery of his studio, and then he also included some sound of some stuff that he recorded in his studio, and he also went ahead and published it up to SoundCloud and put that here as well. And so each page is going to be, you know, something like this, where it's a full-on page, and he's got all of his tags over here that are categories that these different articles can be categorized under, so that you could go and do a search. You know, he's got his featured places and a home link, and there's a contact page. Oh, this is the contact page. Another example would be like if you were to do something, this person did something on Balboa Park and went and spent an entire day at Balboa Park and took photographs and went and did as many things as possible. In fact, actually a couple of students went together, and that way they were able to split up some of the work, and in terms of taking photographs and stuff, which is also, you know, acceptable. And they didn't do it as a group project in that they did not just turn in one website. They pooled their efforts together to get the resources so that they could each do their own individual websites, but you know, then they took photographs and wrote the content, and then they just shared the content and did their own websites with that, which was really smart. So you're allowed to do that too. This is another one for a student who did a lot of photography, and she actually took the opportunity to go visit a lot of places and just go take photographs and then write about the experience. And so if you were to click on each of these, it would take you to a page that was specific with a gallery to each of these places that she did photography. And you see that this is categorized here, so that if you go to day photography, it's got these things that are related to day photography. If you were to go to graffiti, and this page just loaded, and you can tell that we're looking at the graffiti category. And you know, some of these are overlapping. So Adobe Falls, you noticed, also was under day photography, but it also falls under graffiti. And so if you were to look at night photography, you would see some other stuff too. And this page just loaded, so we've got night photography, and then pictures of Balboa Park at night, downtown San Diego, this trolley station. Okay, and anyway, so another example is a student decided that he wanted to use this as an opportunity to go to a bunch of restaurants he'd always wanted to go to and just hadn't been. And so he used this assignment as a way to do reviews of these places. And so, you know, he took photographs and wrote up his reviews and talked about his food. And if you were to click on this, you'd get more information. Okay. And then he's got, you know, his featured restaurants here. Another person went to OB and did a slightly different approach, where it was all about things to do in and around OB. Okay, and so that's kind of what this is all about. All right, so there are lots of different approaches that you could have to this, and these are just some examples. All right, you could do a lot of other things as well. You know, and if you really wanted to do something crazy and interesting, like setting up lots of dioramas, because that's what you like to do, and then taking photographs and making up these fantastical places and then writing about them, that would be acceptable too. So I'm really open to the topics that you choose for this assignment. But this just gives you an idea kind of some of the things that the approaches that other people have taken.